Yume Sam, a young male in his teenage years, living with a single mother. His life until now has been relatively ordinary. Not peace and quiet, but not gloomy and dark. He too considered himself to be ordinary, not full of character that will make him stand out in a cosplay convention, but not too bland that he wouldn't be able to see him in a crowd. All that was fairly true, until a certain moment in time, where even the clock that once stood started ticking. Hello everyone, my name is Valinda. Welcome to my channel. It's my first video here, per se, at least one that has a voiceover. I usually don't do videos like this, so forgive me. Here I present to you a speed paint of a relatively old artwork I think I made 2 months ago, but at the time I didn't have any good quality video editor, so I get to share it from anywhere outside of my Insta. The character presented in this piece is Daeshim, originally known as Yume Sam. An OC that goes way back to 2019 when I first made him back when I was in my gacha phase. Oh god, please no. Back then he was a questionable character, and after a certain point I kinda just forgot about him. I threw him to a very far corner somewhere. In March of this year, I was looking back at old art in my gallery because it was crowded. 20k photos, what the, huh? While I was looking through, I happened to see some of my old stuff of him. And I thought, he had a pretty interesting storyline, didn't he? How about I just redraw him for fun since it's been 3 years from now? And that's exactly what I did. I grabbed a piece of paper and there was a little design. I placed it in my Instagram story alongside a make an assumption OC thing, because Insta had this new feature at the time. I still don't know what it's called. And somehow, he ended up being pretty well received. This wasn't supposed to be more than just a simple redraw, but then he went here, and we made it here, somehow. He even has a ref sheet. Damn. Yume is a 15-year-old male who studies in a private school in the 9th grade, who lived in what he called an ordinary life until February 29th. From then on, he can no longer describe his life as something ordinary. To simplify the events that lead up to this, his mother had been going out on a date with a man that she met many months ago. She says she will be going on a date with him and that she will not be back till the afternoon, 4 o'clock or so. She leaves the key with her son, and he goes to school and she goes to her date. The day goes on normally for the most part, and then he returns home. This is the first time he is home alone, and he feels a horrible sensation around the home. Something just felt off. It made Yume uncomfortable. And during the night, he invited a friend over. Though it was already dark and now the friend had left, he still didn't get anything from his mother. He texted her earlier and she said that she'd come later, but it was already dark. How much later could it get? So he went back to bed, and the next morning he texted her again, but this time she gave no reply. So he went to the police station, where he tried to file a missing persons report, which he was received with some questionable news on how you couldn't file a missing person until 72 hours passed, which is unrealistic. What? He replied, and without having a choice, he continued that day as it came. When he returned home, he saw it. He saw his mother's shoes on the front door. It seems like she came home, certainly. He went inside and screamed for her, but he didn't hear her. All her belongings are on the table, except for her phone. She forgot her phone. That's it. She probably went to go find it. He goes back outside. It's raining already. And he just went outside in order to receive her when she returned. But instead of that, he receives a call. It's her number, but not her voice. He can hear a man at the other side of the phone stating he found her phone and was wondering if this whom he was calling was her son. Yume tells him that he can stop by their address, but he is suddenly stopped by, "What? I never said I would return it." He reiterates what he says and says that he only mentioned he just found it and that he had asked another important question, if he was her son. Yume, a bit confused by this question as to why this was relevant in the first place, he gave his reply. "Yes, I am." "You're a bit more pathetic than I imagined. So you were human." This was the reply he got. He starts to go on about stuff, but then he goes down to the chase and tells you that he has held your mother hostage, and that if you don't do something for him, he will simply decapitate her on the spot, and will send him a full video of it. What the? He begged the man not to, and asked him what exactly did he want. He wanted a favor, but he wouldn't tell him the favor unless he agreed to it first. Twisted, obviously, to the man's favor. Yungwoo could not refuse. It was her we were talking about, after all. So he accepts. The favor is, he will give him a list. It will have 16 people on it, and he has to eliminate all 16 of them. Yume just agreed to kill on this man's behalf. Being unable to process what he had just heard and what he had gotten himself into, bam, and it stops. This is the superficial main premise of the story. It's like the story's main idea, but only a layer of it, which is why I prefer to call it a superficial main premise. There's a larger rabbit hole to all this, but this is the limit of what I wish to share. For now, at least. The drawing I'm working on in the actual Speedpaint is one that was actually for a manga practice. I had never had actually drawn manga before this, at least not properly. So this was more of a sort of study to actually understand manga itself. I always was fond of the inking process, and I found a brush that worked really well for this sort of thing. It really made me want to make a manga for myself. It's an idea I've always wanted to do, and I'll probably start with this story. I currently have up to 3 chapters written and drafted. I'm hoping to continue working on it in the future. Well, if I am granted the time. Or at least the courage to. Anywho, I don't think I have any further comments to say on this. So, I think I'll end it here. That's all for me. May you continue to enjoy the rest of the Speedpaint. See ya. Anywho, I actually wanted to add something else to this because this speed paint actually contains not one drawing, but two drawings. The first drawing was the manga practice that was supposed to be mostly for study purposes. After all, he has the uniform that he wears in the ref sheet from like the original stuff. So the other version, which is the video that I think is currently playing right now, or at least starting to play. You know, I'm not actually seeing the speed paint. This is a voiceover. So hopefully, if I edit this correctly, it is going over that video already. This one was actually more for expression study. I don't usually draw characters with super expressive emotions. If you've seen my art before, you probably see that I go along more with pretty faces rather than ones that are supposed to transmit huge emotion. However, because I may work on a manga in the future, I thought that I needed at least a vast understanding on how to draw certain emotions. And one that I decided to draw for this was a scared sort of mission. Hyung-woo is a person who is usually calm and collective, and also can understand the person rather easily. He has a good understanding of people and can even grow to sympathize them. However, there's a limit to that. Basically, to resume, he is not someone who would easily break composure. You won't see him always in a sort of panic-like state. However, in this situation, in this drawing in of itself, he is actually omitting that because this is supposed to represent that scene when he gets told about the favor. The favor, which ended up being something much more gruesome he had initially expected to come from it. The picture itself is supposed to represent his moment of despair. His expression pretty much full of fear after witnessing what he saw, per se. That was the whole point of the expression itself, which fit very well and made this experimental piece definitely have a lot more meaning to it. So I started thinking about what exactly emitted a strong sense of fear or darkness. So in this case, I used the inking process for that. A lot of cross-hatching, blacks, grays, a lot of it that could just emit darkness, and you could see rather clearly with the lines just how he's feeling. With his hands stretching out his face, you can see the eyes probably slightly downward with where the lines are heading. I feel like I transmitted this pretty well, but you can be the judge of that in the comments somewhere. Now that I actually have that out of the way, explanations of the speed paint itself, I'll let you continue the speed painting piece. And I'll talk to you another time, if there is another time. Enjoy the rest of the speed paint.